In the early 2000s, thanks to the growing popularity of video games and an appreciation for the entertainment medium moving beyond largely accepted stereotypes, thanks in part to celebrities voicing their love for the interactive form of fiction, debates started springing up whether or not video games could be considered art. For gamers, one of the key positives to support their argument came courtesy of Team Ico's PlayStation 2 releases Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, two games focusing less on exploitative violence and more on atmosphere and evoking true human emotion, be it fear, loneliness, hope, salvation, redemption, and usually loss. In 2007, it was announced a third game would come from Team Ico titled The Last Guardian, a game based on the relationship between a boy and a mythical creature unlike anything seen in a video game thus far. Yet, development woes came with such grand expectations that resulted in The Last Guardian not only getting delayed, but also pushed out of the release window of an entire console generation. Eventually, Team Ico opted to release their latest intended piece of video game art on the PlayStation 4. The road to The Last Guardian's release was nothing short of bumpy and left this gamer worried, yet optimistic that all the development woes wouldn't hinder what could be considered another piece of art in video game form. Similar to their previously produced games, Team Ico doesn't break the tradition of throwing the player via a single male protagonist into a desolate, yet majestic, and potentially forbidden land. Rather than encountering an imprisoned princess like in Ico or trying to make a deal with a disembodied being, such as the opening minutes of Shadow of the Colossus, The Last Guardian's protagonist, an unnamed boy who appears to be more of a child and less of a teenager, awakes to find himself stuck in a room with a chained dog-like beast with stubbed horns, chicken feet, broken wings, and an electrified tail. Slowly but surely the boy helps free and feed this mammoth beast before their journey out of their ruined entombment begins. Rather than stick to the gameplay style of Team Ico's most recent release in the Shadow of the Colossus, the developers returned to a format more in line with what was seen in Ico. But instead of being forced to practically carry around a helpless damsel, the boy and his newfound buddy, eventually named Trico, work hand in hand with each other to eventually produce several satisfying and heart-wrenching moments from start to finish. A finish that came for yours truly barely 10 hours after I turned the game on for the first time. A replay came shortly after for trophy hunting and a playthrough recording purpose, lasting around 7 hours. There's a chance I'll replay the game down the line to see if I can finish it under 5 hours for the game's rarest trophy. But for now, I'm completely satisfied with my time with Team Ico's first new offering in over a decade. For those who played through the game's predecessors, The Last Guardian will feel incredibly familiar. Controlling the unnamed boy, players can grab objects including barrels that will feed his companion, climb ledges, and even decapitate the stone soldiers apparently possessed by an unforeseen spirit very similar to the adversaries in Ico, who attempt to grab the boy and take him into a portal hidden behind unlockable doors. While the adolescent protagonist is the driving force behind the game's progression, it's Trico who proves to be the reason for almost every success the boy attains, and even a few failures. Trico's new master has the ability to command the beast to perform certain actions, such as jumping up or across great distances, destroying those aforementioned soldiers, and using its mouth or tail to catch the boy from descending to his death. Sometimes Trico being a safety net falls short, but it usually means the difference between starting at a relatively convenient checkpoint or continuing on with their journey. But the relationship between man and beast isn't just some glorified escort mission, as Trico stands around and waits to be ordered. The first few hours, Trico is hesitant about following the boy and seems to be on a trek of his own. Slowly but surely, Trico becomes more obedient and responds to the commands quicker, or gives the boy hints as to what direction the player should take them. The growing bond also connects to the gameplay in various ways. Almost immediately, the player is introduced to the ability to remove spears from Trico by climbing atop it thanks to a control scheme similar to that of Shadow of the Colossus, and feeding Trico courtesy of barrels both obvious and hidden. The boy can calm Trico after a battle when the beast starts bucking in fury by rubbing it with the touch of a button. There are almost eye-like decorative pieces that put great fear in Trico that the boy has to destroy, usually by scaling the grandiose locations to complete one of the game's many puzzles. or even taking down enemies with a growing onslaught of simplistic attacks including a head-first tackle. Trico can also shoot lightning from its tail courtesy of the mirror shield its master sports around half of the game, but that proves to be more of a game element addition than anything involving the overall narrative of the age-old tale featuring a boy and his animal best friend. Sadly, Team Ico's greatest hindrance in the developer's quest for perfection has come back to haunt them yet again, as the gameplay, while improved compared to their other offerings, still stumbles. While a majority of gamers have criticized Trico's lackadaisical nature in following the boy's commands, my experience was relatively free of stress once I got the hang of using the commands and how to be patient as I would with an actual animal. Most of my waiting time for Trico to follow orders rarely reached 30 seconds, let alone a minute. While getting used to Trico's actions were mostly easy, the constant camera issues proved unbearable at times and caused several unnecessary deaths, elongated puzzles, and even moments where the screen went temporarily black because the camera cut into a wall. There were also moments when platforming outside where the camera hindered progression alongside the flailing style of the boy as he tried to jump from point to point. The option to grab onto Trico with the playable character can become frustrating as Team Ico implemented an auto-grab ability that turned out to be more upsetting than time-saving, as dropping off of Trico can prove to be an exercise in futility, as hitting the release button will drop the boy a couple of inches before he instinctively clutches onto the beast. There are a few more minor control issues such as swimming and diving and even combat, but the scenarios are so infrequent that they don't necessarily tarnish the experience like the camera, the auto grab, or even the boy's faux realistic body movement do on a constant basis. Though initially to be released on the PlayStation 3, The Last Guardian doesn't greatly suffer from the graphical infidelities of what is essentially a ported game. While the game looks surprisingly good, optimization isn't The Last Guardian's strong suit, as frame rate drops are something the player will have to get used to throughout. Thankfully, a majority of the slowdown happens during times of simply moving through a room, and not during hectic do-or-die moments. When it comes to sound, Team Ico has always been masterful in their audio presentation. The music is usually based around melodic and exquisite piano sequences and horn playing, though ramps up during grand Hollywood-esque moments such as Trico trying to scarily scale a decaying building. But the sounds such as Trico pitifully crying when it realizes its master has to move ahead without it, or the blustery wind reminding both the boy and the beast that they are dangerously high in the sky, are even more profound than what is usually the basis of a memorable soundtrack. Like Team Ico games of the past, this is truly a memorable journey that mixes the surreal world of video game fiction with the emotional ties based on real-life experiences, only failing to reach gaming perfection due to control and camera issues unfortunately connected with the studio for the past 2 gaming generations. The Last Guardian is essentially an emotional roller coaster due to the gameplay actually helping the overall story, an atmosphere that is bred thanks to the simple premise of a boy and his pet growing more comfortable and, most importantly, dependent on him just as much as the protagonist needs Trico. Unfortunately, the same flaws of previous Team Ico offerings, including tank-like, sluggish controls, AI complications mostly due to the actions of Trico and not the enemies, and a camera that can prove haphazardous, especially during platforming sequences both inside and outdoors, still exist. Yet the negative intricacies that make up the entire experience don't completely hurt the highs felt when cinematic moments, both pre-rendered and not, somehow pale in comparison to the moments of serene downtime, such as when Trico takes an opportunity to bathe itself in a nearby pool. The Last Guardian is nowhere near perfect, yet hits all the right notes from such a niche developer as Team Ico that the group of creators has been trying to achieve with their previous 2 releases. If you played Ico or Shadow of the Colossus, you'll absolutely love this. For those who haven't or didn't appreciate what was offered during the PS2 era from Team Ico, this might not impress or change your opinion about what Team Ico can and probably will produce in the future, respectively. Even if you're in the latter category, The Last Guardian warrants at least a rental just to get a good idea of what the game offers, because a majority of what is seen in the first 2 or 3 hours is completely indicative of an overall charming experience.
Ya, Ditek.